All right, so tonight's lesson is going to be I wanted to talk about forgiveness and just looking at forgiveness where we've all um, been around it our whole life, but I think it is a good follow up from the last lessons. And um, I've really learned some things too recently, so I think I want to be able to share that. So, forgiveness, as a definition, if you look it up, it's a conscious choice to conceptualize an event or person because you no longer want to live with the pain of that. Um, it's an organic process that happens in its own time at its own pace. It cannot be forced. We need to fully feel our feelings as part of our transformation as we're moving through the experiences. Um, the effects of unforgiveness, um, there are health effects of unforgiveness, not to mention your life standing still at that moment, but it affects holding grudge, anger, pain, um, even fight or flight loop in the background affects our health, our organs, body, heart, etc. So um, it also is a letting go of grudges and bitterness, anger, and thoughts of revenge. So that's the everywhere you do a look, this is what you're going to find. So I kind of want to just preface what I'm going to say with I don't know why things happen to me or you, and we can intellectualize and examine us and examine them and examine events. We can question God, we can question life, we can blame God, but experiences happen and life happens. We can't avoid it. And as humans, we're exposed to life and we're exposed to everything to do with our life here on earth, and we're exposed to other humans. So you can be following all of the rules and stuff happens. Stuff happens, right? Anyway, and we can hide, try to control ourselves, control the events, control the people in our lives so nothing ever happens. But you can lock yourself in your house and a plane can fall on your house. A house can burn down around you, a flood can come. So offenses happen, traumas happen, pain happens, other humans happen to us. So I think everybody has a life experience. What's a trauma to one might not be a trauma to another, but none of us is leaving here escaping pain and suffering. We inflict it on ourselves, other people, um, events, weather, etc. Life happens. We're here as human beings for this life experience. Uh, so when stuff happens, and stuff happens when people offend us in the many levels of offense that can happen, um, tragedies happen, world events happen, we have loss. We have loss of stuff, we have loss of children, of parents, of family, of friends, dignity, business, whatever it is, right? Bubbling up after that is our sense of why did this happen? This shouldn't happen. We should be able to live here without an experience of pain or suffering, and that's not true. So, forgiveness is about releasing the need for the pain and understanding why we're holding on to it. And so, we sometimes hold on to the pain um, subconsciously. Uh, Sometimes we hold on to the pain because it keeps us connected to um, something about that, or we feel it justifies us. Um, and in doing my meditation and thoughts about this, forgiveness is really, everything you read is forgiveness is about letting go and releasing and all of this stuff. But forgiveness really is about accepting. And it's accepting it is what it is, it was what it was, and it cannot be changed. It cannot be changed. It has happened already. So if the offense is big enough, um, it gets deep roots and we attach to it. And it can oftentimes become part of our sense of self, or it just carries through in our life. And if it's large enough, it can seem permanent. And I read this example and I thought it was so good. It said if you have a bag and you have a bag with you, and for every time somebody offends you, says something you don't like, cuts you off, this and that, you put a pebble in the bag. And then the next time there's an offense that's a little bit bigger than that, you didn't get the promotion, you put a bigger stone in the bag. And then, you can move on to a boulder. And some of the events in our life seem so big that um, they're not removable, like a pebble or a boulder, right? And we carry this heavy bag around, or we feel that now this event is a permanent part. It's too big to leave. It's a permanent part of our being. So as we move along, we're able to begin to accept life as it is. Um, we no longer need to drag this pain forward or this event forward. And um, it's not denial, and it's not condoning actions that painful actions we had, and it's not saying it's okay, but it's in order for my life to go forward, then I need to release this, or I need to accept the fact that it happened and accept that it is just part of life. It's not personal. And it feels personal because it is happening to our personal life. But much of the time, it isn't. Humanity in its unrenewed, um, unenlightened state, um, much of humanity is living in pain, and looking through the lens of pain and responding to life in a painful way. And oftentimes we're collateral damage to that, right? And so there's a lot of teaching out there that, and I spent a lot of money myself on counseling, and that, forgiveness is you're understanding, you understand why people do the things they do, and you understand uh, their situation, and this is why they did that, or this is why it was hurt, and this is why I was there, why I allowed this situation to happen. And you go through all of this intellectualizing, and it allows you to take this event or process and package it up in a pretty package and put it on your shelf. And now, it's in that box, and I'm moving on with my life. But it's still there. It's still there, and it's still moving forward with us, right? And I didn't understand that until recently, because I have gone through steps and ceremonies and transformations of forgiving the life experience I had at the hands of my family, my parents. And I said, well, I want to live without this pain, and I want to live moving my life forward, and I can accept that, they're dysfunctional, and I can accept that they have their own issues, and so I'm going to box it up and put it on the shelf. And moved on with my life. But now in the past couple of years, I've been on this deep dive into the journey, and I kept sensing that there's something there, there's something more there. And as I delayered myself and was really looking at what else is there? The residue of my past, you know, oftentimes the background loop that's running is not apparent, but you can feel like something, you're just not at rest ever, stuff like that. So as I was looking, unforgiveness came twice across my path, pertaining to my mother. And I was like, oh my God, like I have been down this road. I have experienced this journey. I have written novels. I've transformed. I've gone. I can't imagine there's any unforgiveness in my heart towards my mother. And but then it came up again, and I said, okay, it's worth looking at. Perhaps, I need to look at that. So I did, and I sat down. I asked Spirit to help me, and I sat down, and I said, I feel that I have dealt with this, but I really, it's coming up, so let's go. So I started writing, and I started writing my mother's story, and it started becoming. I was very neutral about it, and so I was writing her pain and her story, and the effects of her pain on me and my life. And all of a sudden, I felt compassion for my mother as a human being in pain. And instantly, the Spirit said, there's your healing. And I realized that we can walk through steps, and we can do all of the stuff, but if we don't meet that person heart to heart, or if we can't see that person as a human acting out of pain, we must have compassion to have complete forgiveness, if even compassion for ourselves as in the journey. And I was able to feel compassion for myself also, having gone through the things I did in the same moment. And then I opened the door to feel compassion instead of having mental understanding. I felt compassion for her soul, and then realized that I was released from the ties that were binding, right? And I spent a lot of time, I'm not young, and I've had a life of, it wasn't all upside down and jacked up about it, but we can follow steps, but we have to come to a place of compassion. We have to come to a place of realizing, uh, I'm a human being, and I come with bags. Everybody comes here, and it's our delayering of ourself and coming back into our awareness of being. Our awareness of being didn't suffer any offense. It's pure, and our spirit is pure. It doesn't suffer the offense. So when we're able to accept that, uh, and allow the healing and the compassion for ourselves, then we can give that away to somebody else. And like Saint John of the Cross, he suffered. He was an innocent person and suffered at the hands of others, and they had him held prisoner in a latrine under a toilet, right? And his suffering and his persecution was immense. And he writes about the dark night of the soul, right? And he came to a place where he got this revelation that, um, their pain stops with me, so they can inflict pain on me, but I'm not going to return it in the form of revenge or anger, or wishing they were dead or something like that, right? um, he was able to see them as humans that were operating out of the small ego mind. And he was able to say, you can hurt me, but the pain stops with me. It's not going forward. And I'm going to return compassion for your pain, because that will help you. That will help you. For the pain you're giving, you're going to receive compassion, right? Compassion. So, compassion is a sympathetic consciousness of others in distress and wanting to do something about it. It's a strong feeling of sympathy for somebody. Um, it's impossible to have that without forgiveness. Forgiveness comes in. Our soul has to crack open for compassion to come out. We have to meet people from the heart, and we choose not to respond in kind. We choose to, me loving you and showing compassion or having compassion for your painful life doesn't put a stamp of approval on anything. It's seeing through the eyes. We teach people, come to church, come for forgiveness. The Lord forgives everything. Why? Because we're seeing through the eyes of compassion. We're just humans. I mean, it says that in the Bible. You are, but we're just dust. Like, we're known for who we are. Every thought, every expression, we're known. And when we start wanting to be more free and more compassionate and more loving and more powerful in our spirituality, we will come to these places where we're standing in a work we thought we completed, but we didn't complete it all the way. The heart had to open, compassion had to come in, and then flow out. And that's true forgiveness, because then there's no ties that bind. There's no residue. When we stop at a we have a trauma, and there's traumas that are huge. But forgiveness in life, where it goes on. It doesn't mean it's okay, but it goes on. So when we stop at a trauma, it's kind of like, your life is a book and you read to this chapter and there's this whole rest of the book that's unwritten and unexperienced by you, because you're frozen at the trauma with pain, unforgiveness, anger, wanting revenge, whatever it is, big or small, because whatever we have, we carry into every single other relationship we have, including the divine. So we're given grace. We're promised no matter where we go, no matter what happens, we're not alone. When we develop the power within, we get to know the shadows and the graces, right? We get to a place where we recognize the human condition is the same, and we're coming in back into our place of enlightenment so that we can give more to people. And when somebody comes into our life that has experienced immense pain, the only person that can come alongside is someone who has worked through, has empathy and compassion, because the person's heart opens and that other person feels compassion from them. What everybody wants is they want somebody to see and acknowledge, understand what they're feeling, the pain that they're experiencing, the injustice. They want to be heard and felt. We cannot do that if we have not been heard and felt. So when a person's in pain and you're brought into their life, the feeling will flow, and we can support another person because our heart is willing to come open. It's not locked because we're not dealing with our own pain. We haven't had compassion on ourselves and those in our life that have hurt us, right? So then our heart is open, the light shines out, the person has been heard. They sense it. There's not words. We don't have to say anything. Sometimes there's nothing to say. It's just shit. Like there's nothing to say, nothing's going to enhance that, but the heart will speak. The heart will speak. And so that's what we want in our sanctuary, in our Holy of Holies. That's what we want. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be loved. And we must get to the place where we're living from that place. And we're not stopping at chapter 2 or not lining our shelves with pretty boxes of stuff that we must then carry forward until it's done. When it's done, it's gone. We move on. My energy's free. The background noise is gone, right? My mother's free. Tethered to me. She's trying to get on with it. Like, it's okay. It's okay. So, we have to see beyond the small mind if we're going to make it through this human life experience. And we need to see beyond our ideas of entitlement. And we should have a life without pain and suffering. I'm not saying pain and suffering, it's just part of life. It's part of life. And our idea that will be untouched by anything that we can coast on through, and feel pity for those people over there. You know, life is organic. It organically happens. And we go in. We go in without, I mean, I'm not talking about raging suffering. You know, if you go to buy your favorite shoes that were on sale and they don't have your size, you could call that suffering, right? In a mild sense. But, you know, not getting our way, not having a perfect life. We suffer because we feel we're entitled to have a perfect life, and we feel we're entitled to have our way, and we feel we're entitled to never get sick, and we feel we're entitled to always have success. But we're promised inner joy, inner peace, inner fortitude. Without life events happening, we don't get resilient. We don't learn what we're made of. Oftentimes never go in. We don't get creative. We don't figure stuff out without some form of speed bump coming down the road, right? So everything in life is teaching us something. It's an opportunity to move ourselves forward, to elevate ourselves higher, change our perspective, grow, become compassionate, empathetic towards others. So when stuff happens, you know, it's not the end of life. It's the end of life as we know it in that moment. And then it's the beginning of something different. So forgiveness requires compassion, emotion. It requires it. And we're always in the promise of love. Like we're giving what we want to receive, a chance to move forward and be better. So compassion, that definition of compassion actually means to suffer together. So when we can come along somebody else, we understand their suffering because we have suffered, and we're able to help. We're able to help just by being there. And then the other person's able to move on, oftentimes. So it's part of our process. We can only experience life in its fullest from an open heart. And we can only give the best gift from an open heart. And so it's feeling, it's grace. So that is my message on forgiveness. We go beyond understanding and we're moved with compassion. So, oh, and I want to read, you can think about if you have any comments while I'm reading this. But, you know, my favorite book, Prayers of Cosmos, the line in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our debts as we forgive those who, as we forgive our debtors, or forgive us our trespasses. So the translation of that one verse in the original Aramaic: loose the cords of mistakes binding us, as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Forgive our hidden past, the secret shames, as we consistently forgive what others hide. Lighten our load of secret debts as we relieve others of their need to repay. Erase the inner marks our failures make, just as we scrub our hearts of others' faults. Absorb our frustrated hopes and dreams as we embrace those of others with emptiness. Untangle the knots within so that we can mend our heart's simple ties to others. Compost our inner stolen fruit as we forgive others the spoils of their trespassing. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. So there's a time for the pain. There's a time for the experience. There's a time to walk through it. And then there's a time for forgiveness and for healing. It's part of our human journey. Silence. Any comments? Okay, so we will have a meditation then. I'm going to just stop the